Let's talk about the tab bar, which is quintessentially iOS, a classic staple that has seeped into Android apps more and more over the years. The goal of this component is to help organize the app into meaningful sections while providing a great amount of transparency. On Android, apps use the hamburger menu, but the iOS philosophy says it's much better for the user to see all the available sections right from the get-go. By not hiding various parts of the app, the user gains a better picture of the app's capabilities. In terms of size, on an iPhone 8, the tab bar is 49 points tall and its label is quite tiny, only 12 points. On the iPhone X, the text grows to 14 points and the rectangle takes up 83 points. You might say that's an odd number, but that's because in that amount there's another component included, the home indicator. This must not be hidden or played with. Apple recommends we keep it as standard as possible. Now let's talk design. The Active tab should have a different color, both in terms of its icon and its label. To avoid any ambiguity, most designers prefer to use a medium gray for all the other tabs. Besides any design advantage that's yielded to the Active tab, this is done first and foremost to provide meaning. This is especially true since gray never signifies a disabled or unavailable tab on iOS. On Android, that's another thing. In this course, I've mentioned several times that you should stay away from light grays because this usually means that part is inactive or disabled. Well, in the case of the tab bar, that doesn't apply. Imgur strays away from this best practice, and it's debatable if it's well executed. First, they chose not to include labels. Risky. This should only be done if those specific icons are extremely well recognized. Here I can give them that, it's pretty clear what's what. Home, search, some type of video, notifications, and my profile. So far, I can understand their choice, but here's where they take it to the limit. We're currently on the home page, but we'll move to the search section. See the difference? The home icon transitions from its filled state to a linear design. The search icon becomes thicker, not exactly stellar in my book. If we check the other two tabs, we can see the active one always gets the filled treatment. Of course, search doesn't follow that rule because of the icon's nature. Leaving that aside, do you think it's intuitive? Now that I've explained it, sure, I think you can get used to it, but for a casual user, this takes time. He may not immediately recognize where he's at inside the app, and that's never a good sign. Having said that, Imgur isn't the only company that approaches its navigation this way. Net-a-Porter, a luxury clothing company that targets women, uses the same style. Here's home with its icon filled. And if we switch to account, notice the change. Editorial shows us the same problem as with the search icon in the Imgur app. The style isn't consistent. They couldn't fill the book, so they chose to increase its stroke. I can't say I'm a fan. This is why I suggest you keep things standard. Moving to another app, Audible keeps it simple. Their brand's orange lights up the Active tab. Where they deviate is with this play icon. On Android, we have the floating action button. On iOS, some apps add a central icon that controls its core function. In this case, it plays the audiobook. It's not that common, but it's fine if it fulfills the purpose of the app. Moving to TED, things again are simple. 4 filled icons, 3 grey, 1 red. Wikipedia, again, intuitive and clean. Nothing to shout about, but this is an encyclopedia. It has to be functional more than anything else. Going back to styling, very few apps choose to play with colours. So far, everything's been based on white backgrounds. Blinkist tries to be interesting by using something more eye-catching. The inactive tabs are still grey though, and from my point of view, this isn't an appropriate amount of contrast. I can applaud their efforts, but I can't say they wouldn't benefit from cleaning this up. And it's quite a shame since their icons are lovely. In terms of functionality, the tab bar doesn't operate through a swipe gesture. Regarding the number of items, 5 is the limit. In case you need additional items, the recommended method is to use a More tab. Take Booking's case. This is a big app with a lot of firepower in terms of functionality. They couldn't possibly include everything in 5 tabs. That's why they went with 4, the last one revealing a ton of other parts of the app. Back to Audible, they do the same thing. For you as a designer, this doesn't mean too much as you won't be in charge of the app's architecture. Most likely someone will give you a wireframe that will already have an established tab bar. So then, what can you actually do with it to get creative? Not a lot, I'm afraid. On iPhone X, our hands are virtually tied due to that home indicator. On the iPhone 8, we saw Blinkist try and, in my view, fail at being interesting. Netflix keeps it simple. Nice icons, black background, white for the active tab, grey for the rest. YouTube just about the same. Google Maps shines, but that's just because they have beautiful icons and they use that staple iOS blue on the active tab. The takeaway, if there's one in particular, is to use a bright, saturated colour for the active tab, grey for the rest, and spend most of your time trying to find a gorgeous icon set. Remove the labels only if your icons are crystal clear, which is highly unlikely. And that wraps it up. I'll see you soon.